Okay, we should be good.
Good morning. It's 9:30. I'd like to welcome everyone to our May 13th meeting. In response to the COVID-19 crisis, we continue to hold our council meetings electronically. The office is officially closed. However, members of the public are invited to attend our meetings electronically by accessing the meeting on the YouTube channel. The first thing to do is ask for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Are there any that I need to hear about? Seeing none, the next item up on our agenda is the Municipal Recovery Plan presentation by our CEO, Michael DeLullo.
Great, thank you, Mayor DeVete. And I'm going to be sharing a copy of the slide deck, so I hope you can all see it. It should appear in your screen very shortly. So I want to thank you for this opportunity this morning for us to start talking about what a recovery looks like for our municipality. Since the emergency declaration back almost 2 months now, Middlesex Center, our emergency control group, along with our management team, have started to put our thoughts towards what a recovery plan looks like. And so in this presentation, you're going to see a 3-phased prong approach that Scott is going to give you a general overview of. Having said that, our municipality is quite nimble. We've been able to adapt to the changing demands. We have provided services where possible throughout the pandemic, and we are providing good value and good service to our residents. But the intent now is to look at how we can resume our full operations. So in light of the province's recent announcement, I think as earlier as yesterday, where the provincial declaration has been extended to June 2nd, they, a couple of weeks ago, provided a recovery plan that's based on a 3-phased approach. So our municipal approach is very similar to that of the province. And the framework that they provided was essentially to look at how they protect service delivery, and then looking at a restart phase, and then to a full recovery. So it's very similar to our recovery plan is very similar to the 3 themes that are announced by the province. I just want to illustrate in more detail before we allude to ours. From the provincial website, you can look back from April 27th when they announced this, what the 3-staged approach looks like. And just looking at the gradual phased recovery, there's no timelines associated with this. And that's one thing that you'll notice in our recovery plan is that, unfortunately, we can't just say we're going to move to stage 1 in X days from now. It's going to be a gradual approach based on how we deal with the pandemic. So just before we get into it a little bit further, our recovery approach is a 3-phased approach as well. And it's how we are closely aligning with the province, with safety being paramount. We want to make sure that the staff, the public feel safe when it comes to once we resume to our full operations. And we are able to adapt. We've been adapting ever since March the 17th when we declared our emergency. And I believe that with the staff that we have, we'll continue to do so. Yeah, so the main premise of this recovery approach is going to have to be the ability to be flexible, to take into consideration opening certain services, closing certain services. So that's what our emergency control group is all about, is being able to react, being able to adapt to these changing times. The province is announcing recovery efforts now and certain measures on a daily basis. So we have to monitor this very closely, and we'll be incorporating that into how we do our full recovery. The other thing I wanted to bring to the group's attention is just the considerations that we do need to monitor before we start going full tilt towards a full recovery. So there's a number of factors that need to be taken into consideration. The lifting of the 5+ people from the provincial order of the gatherings. We do have shared services in the county, so when it looks like discussion with the library or other programs like the YMCA, how do they come into play? We need to also coordinate with the other lower tiers. If we decide to open up a certain service, how can we coordinate and have that effort with our lower tier compatriots? How much risk tolerance we're going to have to bear as we slowly begin to open, and just to ensure adequate staffing and resources are in place. And the most important part of this safety plan is to make sure that we have the appropriate safety protocols as well. And it's not a matter of if or when we do business, it's how we're going to do business. And another discussion I wanted to have with this group is just how we've been able to adapt, and that's going to continue to take place even when we resume our full services. There's a number of ways in which we're going to have to come back to doing our normal type of business with different processes. And we've been working, the staff have been working all along in terms of putting in place certain measures to build up towards a full recovery. So on the screen here, you'll see a number of different recovery efforts that we need to start embedding. So we've already put in place different cleaning protocols where we've already put staggered rooms here at the municipal office when the time comes. So it's these types of out-of-the-box thinking that we need to start to implement as we begin our recovery efforts. I'm going to turn it over to Scott. He can allude a little bit further into the three-prong approach as it relates to our operations.
Thank you, Michael. So just looking at, we actually had this broken down into 4 phases before the province came out with their 3-stage approach. So we kind of rejigged it and felt we wanted to keep it in the same kind of staged approach and put the necessary facilities and amenities in the various buckets. So as you can see there, we've tried to provide a bit of a diagram there as to what would fall into each particular phase. So starting with phase 1, you know, we're actually almost there. We pretty much are there with respect to we, as of yesterday, reopened the general park facilities for walkthroughs, biking, hiking, etc. But the other park amenities remain closed. So the splash pads, skate parks, playgrounds, etc. All facilities remain closed. Community services staff are, as Michael alluded to, we are looking, we've already started some measures to you know, put in place for protection of staff, protection of the residents and visitors coming into the site. So that work's continuing on, but all facilities at this point remain closed. Moving to phase 2, when we look to this, and this might be also driven by our associations or our minor sport groups or organizations, and will also really come down to what the provincial direction is as far as gathering numbers. Right now it sits at 5, so it makes it a little difficult to try and operate facilities with only 5 people in the building. That, you know, at what point does it make sense to reopen them? So we'll have to wait for further direction on that, and as those gathering numbers start to release or ease a little bit, then we'll certainly move in that direction. But in phase 2, we would look at the opening up the Molson pad at the Wellness Center. We still have ice in there. As I noted in past councils, it's actually very efficient for it to remain in. The play equipment, splash pads, skate parks would remain closed, but we would look to open up sports fields, washroom facilities, pavilions from that point. Again, this might have to shift a little bit as that direction from the province comes out with respect to the gathering numbers and so on. We are in constant contact with our library team over at the county, as well as the YMCA. So we, they like us, they've got their recovery plans in place, and they're still trying to wait for some further direction from their organizations as to what that might look like. And I can see possibly, perhaps one branch library in the in each municipality opening up. In our case, we probably look at the wellness center being the larger hub, and we can focus our efforts on one building as opposed to trying to open up other buildings. I feel the wellness center's set up well for putting in those protective measures for the residents, so we can segregate those various services. Municipal office would be open, but would be by appointment only, and still we'll kind of flesh what that looks like. As Michael alluded to, we've already looked at setting and staging up the meeting rooms here, council chambers, the meeting room down at the community center, pre-setting those up in a way that would allow for that physical distancing to continue. So those measures are being put in place. Moving to stage 3, obviously that's the end goal. We certainly want to move in that direction, hopefully sooner rather than later, but we certainly don't have any timing to this. And again, it might dictate the residents themselves, or the associations or the organizations might dictate to what end what facilities may or may not open. So we certainly look at, phase 3 is basically starting to return to pre-pandemic operations with a number of safety measures and things put in place to protect everybody. But we'll have to see how the next few weeks and few months go. We know that I got word yesterday that things like Soccer Ontario has canceled everything through June now. So that's, as Michael said, there's information coming at us each day from the province and various organizations. So we have to be very mindful and very, very connected as to what those next steps may be. And personally, I think we're looking basically at a 2-week window at this point. Trying to forecast or speculate or have that crystal ball in front of us is too difficult to do. So Michael and I have kind of looked at more of a 2-week window with respect to this. Michael, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you, Scott. So there's a number of considerations. It's a very fluid plan. It's not very prescriptive in nature, in the sense that as Scott mentioned, we're constantly adapting to changing needs. The emergency control group continues to meet throughout the week, and we're reviewing the different protocols that are coming down from the province, and we're making adjustments accordingly. And as Scott mentioned, we've already adhered to some of the provincial changes. We've already opened up our trails. So as you can note, moving from one phase to the next is going to be very fluid, where we might make decisions based on provincial approvals, and that will change how we go from one step to the next. But throughout this whole process, I want to make sure that council and the public are kept aware and apprised of all the different efforts that we do make as we make headway throughout this. Our website, middlesexcenter.on.ca/COVID-19, is constantly updated. We'll be using our social media and making sure that any changes that do happen as we work our way through this recovery plan is properly noticed. There's proper notice provided to the general public. Just some other items to take into consideration that I'd like the group to be aware of is that we are in constant communication with the higher levels of government, just looking at other ways in which recovery may be coming. So when it comes to grant projects to move the local economy forward, we've had some communication. Just our grants are in good standing. We're just waiting for a word, and once we do hear back, I will be letting council know. There's information on your council agenda today from FCM, and this is a joint request across the nation for municipalities to support a request to the federal government for funding, and I'd ask that council look at that when we get to the correspondence in this agenda. We're monitoring and adapting to the government for new relief programs. So anything that does stem, we're passing that along to our area businesses from the other levels of government. Our municipality, we are part of the Warden's Economic Resiliency Task Force. And again, it's an opportunity to share different ideas, and things that arise from this working group is shared with our business community as well. And I'm happy to say that we've really embraced technology to move our municipal business forward. And it's been positioned us to provide good customer service to our residents. So we haven't lost a step when it comes to providing good value and good service to council and to the public. So just in conclusion, I just want to thank the Emergency Control Group for their dedication, the management team, and most of all staff. We've really done a really good job adapting to the changing needs. We're going to continue to adapt, and we're going to slowly begin to implement this recovery plan. Hopefully once after June 2nd, there'll be more good news from the province, and we can slowly begin to open up and resume and get to our full operations as in the past. I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Thank you, Michael and Scott. That was an excellent overview. Are there questions? I can't see everyone at once because of the presentation. Just bear with me.
I'll stop the share, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay. All right. Everyone's smiling faces here. Is there anyone who'd like to ask a question? No questions or clarification? Very well. In that case, then, thank you for that presentation. I have to agree. I think the staff response and planning and thinking and doing through all of the different phases and thinking ahead to the coming up phases has been very thorough. I think the key words here are fluidity and being flexible. I mean, if there's a second wave or something, then we are thinking about what have we done, where are we going, how do we do it? So I think all aspects of our business are being taken care of. So thank you for that. Moving on then, the next item on the agenda.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes, sorry.
Can we just get a motion to receive that presentation?
I'm sorry. Yes, I forgot about that. The resolution before us is the County of the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives the Middlesex Centre reopening plan for COVID-19, Middlesex Centre project restart, presentation by our Chief Administrative Officer, Michael DeLullo, as information, please. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Shipley and Heffernan, any opposed? Seeing none, and that is carried then. Sorry about that. Now we should move to the adoption of the minutes. The resolution before us is that the Council of Municipality of Middlesex Centre approves the minutes of the April 29th, 2020 meeting of Council as printed. Any errors or exceptions? None. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Silva and Councillor Arts. Thank you. All in favor? I mean, any opposed? All right, thank you. I'm going to try and ask for opposed. It's a lot easier, I think, than going two ways and trying to figure it out. All right, moving on then to the consent agenda. So are there any items here that we should pull for discussion before we table the items? No, very well then. Any questions on any of those items? Okay, so the resolution would be, oh, these are listed separately. We normally take these together.
There is a resolution under the consent category to receive them all.
Yeah, that the Council for the Municipality receives consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.5 as information and approves the recommendations contained in the reports. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Scott and Deputy Mayor Brennan. Any opposed? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Item 7, staff reports. The first item to table is that report from the CAO number 22 regarding updates to the municipal sale and disposition bylaw be received, and that council pass the amending bylaw to the municipal sale and disposition bylaw number 2012-043. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Silva. And is there a presentation from our CAO? Anything to present?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is for council to look at an exercise that staff undertook regarding our sale and disposition bylaw from 2012, and just observing practices from our upper tier level of government. We took an opportunity to work with legal counsel from the county and make necessary amendments to the sale and disposition bylaw for future usage and consideration. And the main principal change to the bylaw is in regards to inserting an additional mechanism for council should they wish to come across any properties that are deemed surplus for disposal. And that mechanism is to embed a request for proposal opportunity, which is different than a tender sale. And so I thought it would be a good idea to update our bylaw to enable to have that opportunity to exercise that option if we come across properties in the future, and council, it just gives council that additional option. The difference between the RFP and the tender is that through an RFP process, we can put out different demands and requests and conditions, and it's a different evaluation mechanism for when we get requests back on how we want to deal with the property. So it's a housekeeping amendment that is it's something to strengthen our bylaw for any future usage.
Thank you for that report. Then, is there anyone in council who would like to ask for questions or clarifications? Okay, seeing none, then I will call a vote. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried then. Thank you. The next item up is a resolution that Middlesex Centre Award RFP CAO 01-2020 to lead the development of the official plan review to the consulting team led by WSP Canada Group Limited, and that staff be directed to enter into a contract with WSP Canada Group Limited for the project. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Silva and Councillor Scott, thank you. And would you like to speak to this, Michael?
Sure, Madam Mayor. This is a report I'm happy to provide to council. It's the first RFP that we issued earlier in the year. And a working group came together consisting of both municipal and county staff to look at our official plan. And that's one of the major projects, along with our strategic plan, that our municipality is hoping to undertake. And so we issued the RFP back in March, and we received 4 submissions to a full, thorough official plan review. Our official plan was last adopted in the year 2000. It has gone several modifications. So the intent of this major exercise is to put forward a working document that builds on a vision for a long-term vision for the next 20-25 year horizon, taking into consideration all the changes that have taken place from the PPS and growth plan strategies from the province. The process that led us to this decision was a formal evaluation of the 4 submissions, along with virtual interviews that took place with the working group with each of the 4 firms. I'm happy to report that WSP Group is the recommended firm stemming from the evaluations that we undertook. This planning firm specializes in policy work in relation to undertaking official plans and other types of zoning protocols as well. The project that we're putting forward, it's a large project. It'll take more than a year, most likely, especially with the pandemic, with extensive consultation. And the other advantages to this group is that we also be working with Watson's, who we've used in the past. That will be part of this exercise. And there'll be a coordinated approach with Erebus Municipal Services for our strategic plan, as we're going to start implementing that through virtual consultation. WSP is well staffed. They have people in their firm that work with several other municipalities from small to large across the province. So in interviewing them, in checking their references, everything checked out proper, and we feel confident that they can provide a thorough review of our official plan and all of the other documents that go with it to deliver on time, on budget, a good product for us. Just finally, I alluded a little bit to the team that they have that will be dedicated to this. We're talking several hundred hours when it looks at their project scope when it comes to delivering this project for us. The 4 submissions in terms of the pricing, this firm was on the lower end of the pricing scale from the 4 firms that put in a submission. Not that that was the final determinant, but the project team went through the scope with them in detail. There's flexibility embedded in this project where we can take into consideration usage of other firms if need be. And they are quite aware of this, and they're willing to work with our strat plan consultants and just make sure that there's a coordinated fashioned approach when it comes to delivering this product for us.
Thank you for that. Councillors, are there any questions? Okay, and Michael, I just wanted to make sure I highlight one thing then. We're taking a really nice long-term view to get the steps or the phases and the thinking out to the future, but we are under the Act required to do a 10-year check-in, right? Through
the chair, that is correct, Madam Mayor. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, then I can call the vote. Is there anyone who's opposed? Seeing none, that is carried then. Moving on to item 7.5. This is with respect to COVID, the financial measures. The motion before us is that Council receives the May 13th, 2020 report entitled COVID-19 Financial Relief Measures, May 2020 for information. And this is Tiffany, Corporate Services, presenting this. Where are you? There you are.
Through you, Mayor DeVete. So the report for 7.5 for the financial relief measures for May 2020. This is just an update to Council on what has been done to date. There are no new recommended financial relief measures at this time, and that's summarized within the report. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Okay, Councillor Silva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Tiffany. Tiffany, can you just give me in plain English what this part means? A supplementary and omitted property tax bills will be processed with all due dates set for June 30th, 2020 or later. Who does that affect? What does that actually mean?
So normally, so that's a great question. And sorry, when I write the report, I do forget that sometimes the common language for property taxes isn't known commonly. So with supplementary and omitted taxes, those are past billing or billing for work that was previously done. So the best example would be a new home build. So say in 2018, there was a new home built. At this time, it hadn't been assessed. It is now assessed, and our team would then be processing those taxes on that property from 2018. So we would invoice those people now, and that would be a supplementary and an omitted bill. The supplementary is the year before, and omitted is the years before that. And that's what those bills would be. So those residents that would be receiving those should be well aware that they have a bill coming at some point. We do always wait on MPAC for getting this information, so the timing isn't something that we can control. But what we'd like to do is make sure that the due dates are a little bit farther out, and so that we are processing those, but with those due dates in mind. And those residents who receive it are more than welcome to give us a call if they don't understand what their bill is about, and our property tax department can walk them through it.
Okay, quick follow-up. Sorry. I know what that is too. At least it's about municipal business. The property tax registrations, that's for people who are like 2 years behind, right? And we'd be normally moving forward with registering the property and putting them on a plan, or potentially taking it over, that sort of thing?
Yes, so property tax registration is for those individuals who are more than 2 years behind in their property taxes as of January 1st of this year. So we do have some properties that were registered last year, as well as some that were registered early this year. What the province has done is put a freeze on any of these properties. So properties that we had that were to finish the process in, say, June, those dates will now change once the emergency order is lifted by the province. It starts all over again from the date in March. So they would then have the 3 months or 2 months, however long the order is effective for. And then we would begin the process. For those that could be registered, we are not beginning that process right now for those individuals if we haven't already registered them. And additionally, we are working with the residents on payment plans, specifically those in that situation. We do always encourage them. We send multiple statements as well as letters with respect to this, because we do want to work with them rather than register their properties.
Yeah. I think last time we spoke, you said there were 6 residents who had reached out for payment arrangements of some kind. Has that number increased in the last few weeks?
It actually hasn't. So we do have those people ready for us to give a phone call to after this meeting. So if there are no additional financial relief measures that are put in place for the entire community for Middlesex Center, we were going to reach out and talk one-on-one to figure out what would work best. And we are looking at deferral of payment plans, water and wastewater billings. We are looking at the interest on those. We have deferred, or council has canceled that for the last 2 months. We aren't recommending it be canceled again, but for those individuals, we're going to reach out. And for any individual who is facing hardships due to COVID-19, we do recommend giving the municipal office a call, and we can work with you and try to come up with a good solution for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Councillor Heffernan. You're on mute still. Councillor Heffernan, there you go.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Actually, Councillor Silva asked the question about the hardship, and that was what I was curious about. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else from anyone? Okay, seeing none then, the motion has been tabled. I'll call a vote. Are there any councillors opposed? Okay, seeing none, that is carried. Thank you. And then the next item is 7.6. With the resolution before us is that the report, Corporate Services 26-2020, outlining the municipal cost containment plan, be received for information. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Shipley and Deputy Mayor Brennan. And Tiffany, would you like to speak to this?
So through you, Mayor DeVete, all the directors and the team here at Middlesex Center has been reviewing all of our costs and revenues associated with our 2020 budget. And together we put together a report to council with items that we have planned for our cost containment. So this is a very fluid situation. I'd like to remind everyone that we are unsure of when the office will be reopened. We're unsure of when the facilities will be in business and what that will look like in the future. So we want to be as conservative as possible. So what we are looking at covering off is all the lost revenues that could occur in 2020 so that the municipality does not fall into a deficit situation. So staff have diligently went through the entire 2020 budget and have come up with a cost containment plan at this point that totals $907,000. That this is completely related to tax rate supported items within our expenses. So all of these would fall under things being covered by the tax rate. Items that would not be covered by the tax rate would be the building department. And given the amount of revenues within the building department, even to date, we are not concerned with their operations. With respect to water, wastewater, and stormwater, these are also user rate supported. So they support themselves and fund themselves. You'll see in the report that there are some, we have noticed some decreases in the revenues as reported in April. And will be reported again either at the end of this month or in June, when we'll see what the newest amount of revenue was for water, wastewater. We are noticing a decline in the usage, so we need to make sure that we are prepared for that with a reduction in our expenses. And so there is a smaller amount identified in that department with cost containment ideas. With respect to the general, we are looking at some other items that are very similar to other municipalities and how we're reviewing these. Although this does appear to be a lot of items related to our municipal employees, that they will not be able to partake in the 2020 year. I do believe that these are all financially sound decisions, and our employees, we have a great team here at Middlesex Center, and I feel that they would be supportive of this to ensure that we are doing the best for the financial stability of this municipality and this community. Overall, we're going to, on a month-by-month basis, be reporting what the lost revenues and newer projections on lost revenues will be, as well as how the cost containment strategy is coming. Additionally, we are waiting on some information from Hydro, Union Gas, and we'll put together our own water, wastewater reductions, as well as with the fuel rates reducing, that we'll be able to have more of a clearer picture on the savings that we'll get from these fallout expenses. Overall, we've also reviewed for a longer term. So with the cost containment, we've looked at short term to medium term to long term. Short term would be to the middle of June, and then medium term is after that to the end of the year. And then long term would be anything capital related. So the directors have reviewed all of their capital items and reviewed it with respect to looking at different regulations, any kind of penalties we could face, what would make the most sense, cost effectiveness, and etc. when looking at all of our capital. We did have a large $20 million capital project list for 2020. The directors have put this down to I believe 3.7 million for items to be deferred till 2021. Although this is not cut from our budget, it is a deferral of spending our cash. So that's assisting our cash flow. Should the municipality fall into a situation where we do have many residents who cannot afford to pay their water, wastewater, stormwater, and property tax bills, but yet the municipality still has to continue to pay our bills as well as our portions to the county and the school boards. Although those are deferred, they do happen within the current year. Only the provincial education has been deferred. The county has not made a decision at this time. So deferring those capital projects will help us with cash flow to ensure that we don't run into a situation where we are relying on our short-term borrowing. So those plans are put in place. At this point, would council have any questions that they'd like addressed?
Okay, thank you for that, Tiffany. Who wants to start? Councillor Silva, you go ahead.
Just a quick question through you, Madam Mayor. Is there a deadline to actually use this funding?
With respect to the cost containment?
Oh, shoot. Never mind.
Were you thinking of the modernization money?
Yeah, my bad.
With respect to the cost containment though, so that 907,000 savings, it can change at all times. So if we do get back to operations and this isn't something that we will need to cut, we will bring it back to council but for the most part, we are looking at all these costs for this year.
Is there anyone else? Well, I just wanted, Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Arts. Go ahead, John.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Tiffany. Do you foresee, Tiffany, that we're going to have to use any of the tax stabilization reserve to offset anything, or are we pretty much on?
That's a great question for you, Mayor DeVete. I do believe that the cost containment strategy that we have is pretty sound, and it should ensure that we do not have to go into our tax rate stabilization. However, that still could be an option, depending on specifically community services with respect to their larger revenues that we could be losing. This does maintain some of the smaller, like POA, Provincial Offences Act, revenue, loss of interest income on the banks would be covered under this, but we are hopeful that there is going to be some revenue coming through for community services. So I think the next step before we would even look into the tax rate stabilization is also looking at our service levels. So possibly those would have to change in 2020 if this does progress even further, or if we find that the limitations or restrictions being put on by the province would limit our what we can actually do and to raise any kind of income. But at this point, we do have a healthy tax rate stabilization reserve, and we do have the final numbers coming in from the 2019 audit, which we will be presented either next council meeting or their following, which will discuss a buildup of our tax rate stabilization reserve for this year as well, that we could rely on should we go into an issue with payments and too much expenses.
Follow on? Oh, I think that's good. Councillor Arts, you had your hand up?
Yeah. Through your Madam Mayor to Rob. when it comes to capital projects or replacement equipment, we've got one grader that's completely wore out, and we got two. When you buy something cheap, you get what you paid for. So that's one area I don't want us to see pull back on, because you can't replace that much worn equipment out. You can't defer it because it just makes a mess. So I guess that's more of a statement than a question. Sorry.
Okay. Is there anyone else? I just wanted to comment to staff about the work that went into this, the line by line presentations of all of the projects and items and so forth. I think this preparedness in assessing critical pieces and what can be deferred and not is a really good exercise. And especially in the context of Monday's announcement with the province's dollars that are allocated to build, repair, replace. If that money starts coming through, and some of these projects then can be moved up because there's going to be new monies to help us with that, I think that really positions our team well. So thank you, staff, for the work on the financials and the plans and the foresight to keep this in the right perspective so that we know how to move forward. Michael, is your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to echo your comments, I just wanted to thank Tiffany and the rest of the group. As much as our focus has been external to make sure we provide sound public service, as you heard from the presentation, we're also focused inward. It's a really important risk management exercise to mitigate loss for our organization so that we remain financially sound. And Tiffany and the rest of the gang are doing a good job. As you can see, we're doing it to the point where we're getting line by line at some point here with our capital. But because we don't have any definitive timelines, I think it's necessary that we undertake this exercise. And I just want to thank everyone for doing that. We're going to continue to monitor and keep council apprised as we make these difficult decisions.
Yep, I think it's just staying nimble and being responsive for the long run. So thank you too. Okay, so in my moving around between screens here, I've missed item 7.3 and 7.4. So we need to back up to the middle of we did both ends. Now we just have to go back to the middle. So if we go to number 7.3, and the motion before us, sorry, I'm losing my voice here, is that report 2019 investment in small and rural municipalities be received, and that the investment in small and rural municipalities funding of $610,207 received in 2019 be transferred to the tax rate stabilization reserve fund. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Silva and Councillor Scott. And this would be Tiffany again, Corporate Services.
So through you, Mayor DeVete, the investment in small rural municipalities, council may remember from a report back in, I think it was either February or March of 2019, when the provincial government provided municipalities with this funding. So at that time, we received the funding and there is no strings attached. The province had provided it to provide incentive for municipalities to do items that make the municipality itself more efficient and to modernize it. What the municipality had done at the time is we had just set the money aside. It was sitting in our bank account because in our 2019 budget, as well as our 2020 budget, we had already planned to do many modernization projects that were included as part of our tax levy, because this is for Middlesex Center. Modernization and efficiency is something that we've been doing for many, many years, even before the government came out with these plans. This started with, say, modernizing and making our payroll system more efficient and completely electronic. In 2019, we tackled projects such as the AP workflow, which requires that all of our accounts payable is now processed electronically. This project went live this March, right at the time the pandemic hit, which ensures that we're continuing to be as efficient as possible. We also have an electronic system for our new for fire records that we're working on, eScribe, that was done in 2019. So although it appears that we didn't spend any of this money, we actually did do many projects that were worth over a few $100,000. However, these were already planned and therefore we didn't touch any of this money and it has just been sitting aside. So this will make up part of our surplus for the 2019 year end. So what I'm suggesting here is that we do put in our tax rate stabilization fund to be used in next year or the year after. So it would be in 2021 budget, and we'll continue with the modernization and efficiency projects that this municipality has been working on for many years, and continue to progress this municipality. And so we would then utilize the tax rate stabilization reserve fund for this money specifically to pay for those rather than increasing our tax levy or utilizing any of the tax assessment increases.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Councillor Silva.
Now I get to ask this question. What's the deadline for using this money?
So at that time, the province hadn't actually put on any deadlines as well as any reporting. So they're not requiring anything. What they did ask at the time was what your municipality has been working on. And we had replied to our representative with the ministry with some of the projects that we have been doing, although it was something that was already planned for our municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none, then is there anyone opposed? Okay, and that motion is carried then, thank you. And we'll move to 7.4 now. This is development charges interest bill. The resolution before us is that the municipality authorize the following for the new mandatory deferral and installment payments for nonprofit housing, rental housing, and institutional developments in accordance with section 26.1, subsection 7 of the Development Charges Act. Interest charges will be set for the year on January 1st in accordance with the most recent available 12-month change in Statistics Canada Quarterly. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Scott. Okay, and would you like to do a presentation, Tiffany?
So through you, Mayor DeVete, with respect to the development charge interest, you'll notice that with the changes as of January 1st, 2020, there were some changes with installment payments. And when you're looking at the type of projects that will be allowed to have installment payments, Middlesex Centre does not normally see many projects in this in these categories. However, it is important that we do develop and establish what our interest rate would be should we fall into, should we have any buildings in this category that wish to do the installment payments as an option. Therefore, in working with what other municipalities have done, as well as with our consultants we've worked with on development charges, we've developed that we have determined that the best course of action for our municipality is using the construction price index. This is the same measure that we use when we increase and index our development charges yearly, so that we'll have that amount as well as it will mirror what we're already doing with the other development charges that will continue. And so at this point, that's what we are recommending. This can change through the regulation that's going to be done by the province. They might actually tell us what interest rate we will be using, but at this time, this is an interim measure. We wanted to have something in place in case we do get a project that we would put on installment payments and need to charge interest. So at this time, it is just an interim measure. We would address our bylaw with this in the future when an amendment is done, which will either be in 2021 or 2022. That also ties into the community benefit charge as we are waiting on the province for that final resolution. You will notice tying into this report, as well as the community benefit charge report, that Watson's and Associates did do a reply back to the province on the regulation, and our municipality was part of those comments. We did provide some comments to Watson's, which is included in that that you'll see in our correspondence section. Are there any questions?
Okay. I don't see any questions. We have a motion before us. Is there anyone opposed? And seeing none, that is carried. Moving on, then the next item that we have is correspondence. The resolution before us is that the Council of Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives correspondence items 10.1 through 10.11 as information. Are there any here that councillors would like to highlight or speak to? Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor, I was noticing, I believe it's correspondent number 11 that the staff is requesting that we endorse, and that's for the FCM recommendation for federal funding, and I have no problem with that. What I was also going to suggest, if council would, is to endorse 10.2, which is the City of Hamilton's request of the province to extend authority to enforce odor and lighting nuisances to the municipality. And this is in regards to cannabis. And I don't think we have that issue at the moment, but I'm just thinking to be proactive. For example, in Hyde Park, they have this issue, and I can attest to that. I was sitting in traffic there once, and last fall, my window was just cracked, and certainly you can smell it, and I'm only there for like seconds or a minute or something. So I can just imagine that if for the residents and the businesses in that area, it must be quite a nuisance. So I was just hoping that council would agree to endorse that particular letter from the city of Hamilton.
Thank you, Councillor Heffernan. What is the wish of council here? Would anyone like to speak to this or support the motion, or?
I'll support the motion.
Councillor Arts and Councillor Silva, Councillor Brennan. Did anyone want to speak to this or comment? No? Okay.
No, I agree with Debbie. I think it's a good support. I think it's a good one that we should be supporting to protect our residents.
Okay, and Councillor Arts, you wish to speak to this?
That wave was to support it.
Okay, Councillor Scott, your hand was moving as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think it's probably a good idea to support it too. I'm just curious of what enforcement they're going to be able to have, and what support. What are they going to be able to do about it? The letter doesn't really state that too clearly.
I can say that this has come before the AMO board, and we've been talking about this. Councillor Hilda McDonald, Mayor McDonald in Leamington has spoken to this at length. Given the situation with greenhouses there, they're really at the front of this kind of conversation. I expect that at some point, AMO might be making a presentation to someone at Queen's Park or asking for additional assessment of this kind of industry, and that standards might come. So there's nothing specific that I'm aware of at this time. Maybe staff has more information, but I think this kind of thing is probably going to be dealt with more frequently. So could the clerk, then the question would be, can we just add a resolution then that our council support Mayor Eisenberg's letter?
Yes, I've go ahead and drafted that, and I have Councillor Arts as a mover and Councillor Silva as a seconder. And if you want to vote on that, we can put that.
And we do that outside of the passing of the resolution. We do that right now?
Yeah, we can do that right now. And then we can do that again for 10.11 too.
Okay, so I'll ask for, is there anyone opposed to the supporting of this letter? Seeing none, that is carried. And then I'll also call a vote on the item 10.11 for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities support. Is there anyone opposed to supporting that? And there are none opposed, so that is carried as well. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions on any other items there? Okay, so we still have to take call a vote on receiving all of these items. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried then. Deputy Mayor Brennan, would you like to update us on any council news from the county?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think everybody was probably on the webinar from the county with all the municipalities across the county, so I won't touch on that too much. I think everybody was clued in that one and heard all of that. Today we did have a council meeting, a county council meeting. First thing that was mentioned was that it is Nursing Week. So a big shout out to all the nurses working on the front lines. Councillor Shipley's wife, Joan, is a nurse that I know of, and so we thank her and all the other nurses for everything they've been doing over the last 2 months. It's probably very stressful for them, but they're hanging in there and doing a good job for us. So we thank them very much for that. The Middlesex London Health Unit move is continuing on. They did hit an electrical line doing a borehole the other day, which cut the power off to 50 King Street. So that is supposed to be fixed today, and then the closing of everything and cleaning up of everything is ongoing. The closure on the sale of the building is on time, it should happen around the end of this month, which is a good thing, which we'll see what transpires after that closes. From the paramedic service, the neonatal ambulance that we received funding for back in the late winter, early spring, wasn't sufficient. That unit is being used a lot more than they thought it would be. So it was, they were calling staff off of an ambulance to cover that unit, but it was found that they had people going to that unit all the time. So they applied to the ministry for full-time funding for that unit, 24/7 staffing of that unit, and that was okay. So they've got $1.3 million per year to staff that unit 24/7, and it does do a lot of traveling. So on that too, the unit is going to wear out quicker than they assumed. So we got another $54,000 for replacement costs for that unit because it will be replaced sooner. So that's a good news story for everything. They reported that the ambulance service did start ramping up in December for COVID-19. And since January, their number of calls has been declining because people just aren't out and about and everything. They've had 23 full-time staff quarantined, but all of them tested negative to COVID-19. So they really haven't had anybody test positive as of yet. So that was a good news story too. On May 21st at 7 p.m., the CEO of the county is trying to put together a webinar and having the AMO CEO come on, Monty McNaughton, Uric, MPP Uric. He's trying to get the premier and the health minister to all come on for 10 or 15 minutes each, just to give us updates and talk. So he's working on that. And again, that's May 21st at 7. So we'll see how that goes. If that can, he's already got some confirmation from some people that they will do it. So that could be interesting if he can pull that together. And our next meeting is May 26th, and that's about it. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the Deputy Mayor? Okay, thank you for that update. Is there any other business or councillors' comments that need to be aired here? Okay, seeing none. In that case, we have the bylaws. We have motion that bylaw 2020 number 33 through bylaw 2020 number 36 inclusive be approved, passed, and adopted. Is there a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Silva. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none. And I think that's it for our open session. If everybody just stay here and the technology people will take care of changing gears so that we can go into a closed session.